wrestling diehards only, this is the Idaho Mat Chat Prepcast on IdahoSports.com.
That's right. Welcome into a brand new season of the Idaho Mat Chat Prepcast here on the IdahoSports.com YouTube channel, Facebook page, X account, and Instagram account. That's right. We're upping our game this year. Thank you for tuning in live. We do this every Tuesday night through the high school wrestling season. 8 o'clock Mountain Time, 7 o'clock Pacific Time, each and every Tuesday. You can set your watch by it. If you're not here live tonight, no worries. You can tune in anytime on replay at those 4 destinations: Facebook, YouTube, X, or Instagram. You can also listen to the Idaho Mat Chat Prepcast at IdahoSports.com or wherever you download and subscribe to podcasts. My name is Brandon Bainey. I'm merely the traffic cop here. I defer to a lot of great experts on this show. And of course, you, the fans. If you are part of Idaho Wrestling Nation and you are tuning in tonight, we want to hear from you, the fans. Give your favorite wrestler, give your favorite coach, give your favorite team a shout out. We'll throw it up in the comments, and then we'll throw it up on the screen. Or if you've got a question for us or any of our panelists as well, throw it in the chat. We'll make sure it gets on the air. Let's bring in our panel for another season of the Idaho Mat Chat Prepcast. Let's start with the man who resides over in the Treasure Valley, Al Fontes. Al, hello, welcome back.
Hey, it's great to be back. It's great to be back. It's been a long summer, and now we're in winter. My wrestling world hasn't stopped since last year, but I'm happy to be back here on the podcast.
No doubt. Al just wrote extensive season previews for every classification in Idaho high school wrestling. They are on our website, IdahoSports.com. You can read them. Don't read them right now. Hang around for the show. Read them afterwards. And then tomorrow you'll sound really smart when you're talking to your friends about who to watch this year. Also joining the panel for another season, we got him to re-up for another 1-year contract over in East Idaho, Brian Zollinger. Brian, what's up?
What's going on, diehards? Welcome back, everybody. Wrestling season is here, and I'm excited. And I just got done reading Al's previews, and feel like I'm ready to go now. I'm up to speed.
I try not to reference other sports on the show, but man, I was worried we were going to have to back up the Brinks truck for you, Brian. You were asking for Juan Soto numbers to come back and do the show.
You got me here. On the cheap.
No doubt. Hey, already getting some comments here, Al. Here's Jose. Al Fontes is the man.
We can't appreciate it. Love being here in Idaho. It's a great state, the gem state, the hidden gem. It's great to be here.
And here's John. I appreciate the articles you wrote in the season preview. Thank you for doing those, Al. It's a labor of love, right?
Yeah, it is. It's a time-consuming thing, and I want to thank all the coaches I was able to get information from, reach out to. There's always something I'm going to miss, but we'll get it by the season's end. Having 5 divisions, a lot of information. But thank you very much.
A lot of data, as Al likes to say. So again, as you're watching this live tonight, throw a question or a shout out in the chat. We'll throw it up on the screen. Also, while you're hanging out, if you could hit that like button if you're on Facebook, or the subscribe button if you're on YouTube, and then share this when it's all said and done. That will help everybody else that wasn't here live find it a little easier on replay. So if you could hit that like button, that helps out so much. Thank you for doing that. Okay, before we get into the format of the show, let's introduce ourselves, because we may have some new people. I know we've got our diehards that have been here since day 1, episode 1, but we may have some new people that are checking out the Mat Chat Prepcast for the first time. A quick introduction. This is a show all about wrestling in the state of Idaho, mostly high school. Sometimes we talk college a little bit, but for the most part, it's a platform and a vehicle to shine the light on these incredible young men and women now that are wrestling in the great state of Idaho. And so that's what we do it for about an hour every Tuesday night throughout the winter high school wrestling season. So my name is Brandon Bainey. I have no background in wrestling whatsoever. I grew up in Montana. I went to a school that would be probably like a 5A school here, probably about the size of Shelley, if you're thinking in your head comparison wise. We were the only school in our classification level that didn't offer wrestling. You had basketball, or you were like lifting weights and getting ready for spring sports. That was those were your 2 choices. So I admit I'm still kind of a novice when it comes to wrestling, but What do great people do? They surround themselves with smart, knowledgeable people, and that's what I've done here. So Al and Brian and a couple of new panelists that we're happy to introduce to you a little bit later on this year as well. Really the people that know the ins and outs. But the one thing that doesn't change is I know these athletes, I know these young men and women, I know their names, I know their stories, and that's what we're all about here. Al, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Okay, Alphonse, I've been in wrestling since 1978, so I'm coming up on my 46th year. It's been part of my whole life. I've been a wrestler, a coach, promoter, writer, historian, whatever you want to call it. I just love wrestling. I've been promoting wrestling for nearly 30-something years. To be honest with you, when I retired and moved here for my career back in 2020, I wasn't really sure if I was even going to do much. And I was challenged by some of my friends back, some of the magazines, Win Magazine, Mike Finn. He says, "What's going on in Idaho? I need an article in about a week." And I says, "Well, let me look it out." And once I realized this was a hidden gem, I have not stopped. I think to date, I've probably written there 150 published articles. I've been having fun. It's a great retirement hobby. And I'm blessed to be here, blessed by God to be here.
We are so fortunate you chose to relocate to Idaho, Al. Somebody with your expertise and skills. Yes, no doubt. And Brian, you are Idaho born and raised. Go ahead and introduce yourself to our audience.
Yeah, Brian Zollinger, born and raised. Grew up around wrestling. My dad was pretty involved with president of USA Wrestling Idaho for decade plus. I went to Sugar Salem High School back in the dynasty years. We won state title 3 of the 4 years I was there. Had, some years 7-8 kids in the finals, which was pretty amazing. Wrestled for the Hall of Fame, the late Hall of Fame coach John Barry. Went to college, wrestled Boise State, BYU for the Olympian Mark Schultz at BYU, and then the legendary Chris Owens was at Boise State when I was there. So it's kind of my background. I've been around wrestling, coached it, still coach, and just have a passion for it. And I'm grateful for IdahoSports.com to have this, and Brandon hosting, and for Al, I'm glad he moved into the state. It's been just a bonus for the wrestling world, and I hope everyone appreciates what you two bring to the table.
Yeah, absolutely. A true resource. Here's Travis Tyler in the chat, guys. Go Sandpoint Bulldogs up north. And I should mention I live in Coeur d'Alene now, so I'm not that far from Sandpoint. I lived in East Idaho for 5 years, Pocatello. My wife and I moved to Coeur d'Alene 2 summers ago. So North Idaho resident now. Here's another North Idaho guy, Matthew Hamilton. The boys are back in town. Good to see you guys. Yeah, good to see you too, Matthew, no doubt. Okay, so what's new on this year's edition of the Mat Chat Prepcast? First of all, guys, we got a sponsor. You see it up in the corner there. The logo, Green Solutions, is sponsoring not just the Mat Chat Prepcast, but anything wrestling at IdahoSports.com. They've got a really cool story. Green Solutions Cleaning and Restoration. It's 2 brothers from Rexburg, and they've been blessed to find a way to work with one another. Their dad put us on the wrestling mats at 5 years old, and then throughout the childhood, they had a lot of success, both in high school and college. Through wrestling, they learned that having success not only takes hard work, but putting in more time than their opponents. And in their business, they've put in the time and energy to make them great at what they do. They say, "We feel we have an edge and can help our customers have a great experience. We are the premium carpet cleaning company in the area. Our main focus over the last 3 years has been in water damage, emergencies, and disasters. No one wants to wake up to a foot of water in the basement. I know I sure don't. That being said, we've learned how to de-escalate the situation and help the customer through the difficult time. Love East Idaho and are grateful for this area and our loyal customers." Again, that is Green Solutions in Rexburg. Big thanks to them for sponsoring the Idaho Mat Chat Prepcast. It's incredible that they came on board.
Yeah, love it. The Green Brothers, just history, Sugar Salem grads. Knew the Green Brothers well from a wrestling family, so you can't go wrong with Green Solutions.
No doubt about it. Okay, more comments and shout outs coming in here. Here's Jacqueline. Let's go Post Falls Trojans. Travis says, "Brandon, you should check out Tri-State this weekend." I can't believe Tri-State's already here. I feel like it's like what happened? I looked up and it was December 10th already. And we've had lots of people asking, "Hey, when's the Mat Chat Prepcast going to start?" We always try to wait until 1 week of competition is complete before we hop on to do the show. And so how do we start the show? Well, we always start with the best thing I saw from the week that was. Al, Brian, and myself will all say one thing that stood out to us from the past week of wrestling competitions, the best thing that we saw from the weekend. Al, what was the best thing you saw from the opening weekend of wrestling competitions?
I went to the Golden Eagles duel, which was known as the Capital Duels or Bugs Bags. Got a chance to see Meridian, Bishop Kelly, Fruitland, a lot of the teams in the greater Boise area. The competition was good. It's still early, but I can observe what kids spent time over the summer preparing and wrestling freestyle Greco, and you can see they're pretty seasoned. So the season's early, but it was a good snapshot of what to expect in the months ahead. But no, I'd say that tournament, that's my only vantage point this weekend.
Okay. Brian, we've got a comment from Instagram here from 14 Jackson. Love Brian's mustache. Yeah, Brian, that looks incredible. For those that are listening to this on the podcast, Brian is really, his mustache game is always like he leads the league, no doubt. But you really got above and beyond with the gel, and it's a pointy piece of work.
The Longhorns going, right?
Yeah, no doubt. Brian, what was the best thing you saw from this past week?
I was up at the Mike Leck Duels, North Fremont. What I was really impressed with the level of some of the freshman wrestlers we have coming in. At the girls tournament over at Artist Nash, I saw some of these freshman girls win the tournament. Grayson Packer from South Fremont looked, amazing coming in as a freshman. So I'm really excited about the future of wrestling in Idaho, just based on these freshmen that came in this week. And you couldn't tell they were freshmen because they took care of business. And on a side note, Ryrie, cleaned house. There were some 4 and 5A schools there, and Ryrie, being the 3A, came in and went undefeated in the duel. So that was really fun to watch.
Yep. And the best thing I saw, guys, from this past week was Lakeland going over to the Inland Empire Classic. This is held in Spokane, and it is the premier teams from North Idaho, the premier teams from that Spokane and Spokane Valley area. And Lakeland won the competition. It was a series of duels. They beat Central Valley from Spokane 67-12 in the championship. They had 10 pins in the finals. Al, that's incredible.
No, that is incredible. That's, Lakeland's a team to watch too up north. I mean, they have some good kids coming back. So, yeah, they'll make some noise this year. I'm confident of that.
They went 4-0 at the competition. Caleb Adams, Zach Teal, Carson Leonard, Jaron Knopp, Austin Howell, Caleb Hammer all went undefeated for the Hawks again as they win the Inland Empire Classic. Here is Jason in the chat. Bright future for Marcus Ailman, 120-pounder from Fruitland. And boy, we're going to get to our season predictions at the end of the show, who we think might win state champion. Spoiler alert, I think Fruitland might take the 4A title after they smashed the record for most points at a state competition last year. Hey, Corey Green, thanks for the shout out. Brian, love the mustache, love wrestling. Go Madison. Yeah, Madison's really been coming on lately too. Okay. Here is also Melinda in the chat. There was a freshman girl out of Lewiston who won a bracket in Sandpoint with a 2023 state champion in it. And yes, on the subject of girls wrestling, we are tweaking the format of the show a little bit this year. We're going to try and be a little more structured, a little more organized, and we're basically going to kind of break the show up into 4 quarters. So think of the first quarter, the first 15 minutes or so. It's going to be, what were the big headlines from the past week? What were the best things we saw? What were the big takeaways? The next 15 minutes is going to be all about boys wrestling. That's where we'll take your boys wrestling questions. We'll talk about the big storylines, get your boys shout outs in. The third 15-minute block at the bottom of the hour, that is going to be dedicated strictly to girls wrestling. And we are fortunate enough to have a couple of girls wrestling experts joining the Mat Chat Prepcast this season. So you'll find out about that in about 10-15 minutes or so when our first girls wrestling panelist joins the show. But we'll talk strictly girls wrestling for 15 minutes. And then the last 15 minutes of the show, guys, will be kind of a look ahead. What are the competitions coming up? What are the big matches and events that we've got our eyes on? So that's kind of how the format of the show is going to be this year. So if you've got girls wrestling specific questions, because, Brian and Al and myself, we try to cover it as best as we can, but we admit it's not the strongest area for us because there's so much other wrestling going on. So what do? We find experts, we find people that are the best at what they do. And so I'm so excited, Brian, to be able to bring on a couple of girls advocates and experts for girls wrestling this year.
It's going to be an amazing addition to the show and give the girls the coverage they deserve, because it's, fastest growing sport there is. And Idaho's girls are definitely competitive. I think Al was saying before the show, seven girls nationally ranked, which is pretty impressive.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. No doubt. Okay, here's Bruce in the chat. Thanks again for all you guys do to support wrestling in Idaho. Of course, it's something that I feel like had been neglected for a while. And so when I came on at IdahoSports.com, that was one of the first things I was trying to figure out was how do we get wrestling back to the forefront and the limelight? And now you kind of said the same thing. There's so many great things going on with Idaho wrestling, including Post Falls over the past couple of years, right? The Trojans have been a force in the 6A ranks. Xander wants to know, what are your thoughts on Post Falls winning the Sydney Eagles tournament? So Sydney, Brian, are you familiar with Sydney, Montana at all?
Only where it's at on a map.
Okay. Yeah. Go ahead, Al.
Oh, I was going to say, I was able to look at the results, and like they said, they're back-to-back champions there. I mean, they had, I think 5 champions, Logan Oza, Ryder Sequin, Damian Hamilton, Trey Smith, Seth Martin were all champions and 5 other placers. So I think it's the second year in a row they've won this tournament.
Yeah, so Sydney is from my home state in Montana, way over on the eastern edge by North Dakota, but they are one of the premier wrestling programs in Montana at the Class A level. We think of like Kalispell Flathead a lot at the AA level, but Sydney is a premier powerhouse in Montana wrestling. And so for Post Falls with 5 individual champions to go over to win that thing 2 years in a row, that's pretty impressive. So it's a great start out of the gate for the Post Falls Trojans, no doubt about it. Here's Ryan in the chat. It was great to talk to you, Coach Al, at the duels. You'll get recognized when you go out in public now, and that hat you wear does a lot for it as well, right?
yeah. It's fun. I love it. I exactly. I mean, I spent more time talking to people than I did pay attention to wrestling, so it was sort of like a little reunion. So just getting back at it. But yeah, it was a pleasure speaking with you, sir. It was good.
So let's talk about, for boys wrestling, the big storylines coming in. Obviously, you're defending champions, Meridian at the 6A level, Fruitland at the 4A level. You had that famous tie between Bishop Kelly and Minico last year, which I think has only happened 2 other times in the history of Idaho high school wrestling, where 2 champions tied for the title and there's no tiebreaker in place. And then the crazy thing, Al, was that there was a tie for 3rd place as well. So the top 4 teams all had 2 separate ties, which was crazy. And then at the, I don't think so. If anybody knows in the chat, I mean,
if you're to try to figure out the probability statistic, you don't have to. It's so low. It's not going to happen again in our lifetime. I just don't know how that was just, that was intense.
Yeah. So those are the defending champions coming into the season. The big changes that come to wrestling this year, the terminology. Al, I'm looking forward to you having to navigate saying 6A, 5A, 4A instead of 5A, 4A, 3A. I'm used to it because I've been talking about all these other sports already, but for you, the lingo is going to be tricky. What used to be 5A is now 6A. What used to be 4A is now 5A. And what used to be 3A is now 4A. There's still just the 3 level or the 4 levels of competition. 3A, 2A, 1A will all compete together in that big pot of teams there. The other change this year, Al, was they tweaked the weights a little bit in terms of each weight class.
National weights, National Federation weights, which I like. They're a good one. They're good. I think it's 215 now instead of 220. I think we're the only state that has 98. Maybe New York. I don't know. But not most of them are 106, right? The first weight.
Yep.
Yeah. So I like them. But it looked different. I'm like, whoa, where's the weight? But I forgot. Yeah, they changed. We could have done it last year, but they decided to do it this year. But talking about changes and rules, I'm still saying 2 takedowns. So 2 is 3 now. And then the near fall, and there's been some rule changes, which I think are good, but especially with the 1 point of contact in bounds for scoring. So things have changed a little bit. It's going to change the dynamic a little bit. That's what I saw this weekend, is that 3-point takedown is a game changer.
Yeah, made the matches go a lot faster. I think it's, mirrors college a little more closely. It's still a little bit different, but, the points just fly. I mean, you had some of these matches, 17 points in the first period. You had first period tech falls. I mean, 3-point takedown, 4 near fall. I mean, it's flying. I think it made it a lot more exciting for the fans. So really looking forward to it.
I am too.
It doesn't matter what sport it is. The more points there are, the more exciting it is for the fans, right?
People love offense, right?
Yep. No doubt about it. Bruce talking about the Sydney Eagles and that Sydney Invitational. Yeah, very tough. They've won many state titles over there in Montana. Coach Guy Melby does a great job there. Yes, legendary wrestling coach in the state of Montana, no doubt about it. Here's Zach in the chat, guys. The Dalkey duels last weekend. American Falls looked strong. Snake River looked good. And the Gugelman-Morrison match was fire, Brian.
Yeah, I saw the result of that. I haven't seen video of that match. I can't wait to see video of that match because, it's one we were all looking forward to, and Gugelman comes out on top, really impressive. But the Dalkey duels, American Falls, they look really strong. If anybody's going to give Fruitland a run for their money, I think American Falls could be the school. Snake, he's right. Snake looked good. Buell looked good. But American Falls, I think, won all those duels and basically won the tournament. Caldwell, Century, all had good showings, as did Moab and Buell for the smaller schools. So,
yeah. Because American Falls, they have 8 placers coming back, and I believe 11 qualifiers, and this doesn't count some of their incoming freshmen that may contribute. So, yeah, they'll give Fruitland. It's still early. I mean, Fruitland's the favorite, but it's still early. We got to see how we end, right? It's how we end.
Yeah.
I was going to ask Brian, how difficult is it? Zach says in the comment, American Falls looks good. Snake River looks solid. For a team like Snake River that's trying to break through, well, they're in the same district as American Falls. How tough is that to try and overtake the big giant that's looming in your district?
That is tough. And, historically, Snake River's had one of the great programs. They won a lot of state titles in the late 90s. So Snake River, they've got a legacy there, and there's a culture built up. But you're right. What's going to be tough in the 4A for American Falls and Snake River is the number they bring to state. I think that district brings like 2 kids maybe plus. So, with District 3 bringing 4 in, it really could come down to who can bring, can Fruitland bring more kids because the district gets a few more, or can Snake River and American Falls, do they beat each other up before they get to the state tournament? And that could really hurt both American Falls and Snake River's chances. And that's the great unknown right now. We don't know who's going to pull the most to the state tournament, and numbers matter at state.
Yeah. Even Buell has like 4 kids that have been in the finals. Yeah. So 11 state qualifiers on top of that. So we'll see. It's going to be interesting.
As a former East Idaho resident, Brian, all I heard was East Idaho's getting the short end of the stick again at the expense of the state of Ada.
The great state of Ada does it again.
Yeah.
And those are huge state tournaments. I mean, you look at 6A, I think 10 out of the 16 kids come from that district. But, in the 6A, it makes sense. Most of the schools are in the Boise area. But, I think 4A, there's still District 3 gets more than any of the other districts, I believe. So,
yeah. And that's the other big storyline I wanted to touch on. Zach says Gugelman got Morrison with 4 seconds left on the clock. That's just a fantastic finish. Al, the other storyline is a lot of teams changing classifications and changing districts, and it's really affecting things. For example, Caldwell, now a 6A wrestling program. Ridgeview, now a 6A wrestling program. Lewiston drops down from 6A to 5A. I know up north where I live, that Post Falls is kind of concerned about that because that affects the number of bids they're potentially getting to state now because it's just Post Falls, Coeur d'Alene, Lake City. There's every 2 years they do the reclassification, and there was a lot of schools that ended up.
And Middleton came down.
Yeah,
and they're tough. So we'll see.
It's another curveball as you try to prognosticate.
6A is getting tougher. 6A is getting tougher. Yeah. So, which is good.
Yeah, because Caldwell is a premier program, and you throw that into the mix already, and it's just going to be interesting to see how that all shakes out.
I think Canyon Ridge came up to 6A too.
Correct.
Yeah.
So you got Sean Hall and some of the other kids some of these weights we're going to see how it works out. It can be really interesting. The road to the top of the state podium, which is good. That's what we want. We want good competition.
No doubt.
It's great. Can't complain.
Yep. This is the Idaho Mat Chat Prepcast on IdahoSports.com, brought to you by Green Solutions, East Idaho's trusted name in water, mold, and fire damage. Locally owned, delivering fast, reliable flood recovery. All right, guys, we're just about at the bottom of the hour, which means it's time to shift gears and focus on girls wrestling. I am so excited to bring on our next panelist. She's going to be joining us throughout the season to talk about girls wrestling in the state of Idaho. I'd like to welcome in Val Johansson. Val, can you hear us?
I can hear you. I'm sorry I'm coming from a poorly lit room. I'll definitely work on that for next week.
That's all right.
Office today, but got a little crazy up here in Sandpoint with internet connection. So we'll work on that for next week, guys.
You know, it just adds to the suspense. The suspense
Right?
builds. So Val, real quick. Of course. Real quick, introduce yourself to our audience. Give us a quick bio and a background in wrestling and what you're doing currently.
So Val Johansson out of Sandpoint, Idaho. I am the women's wrestling coach for Sandpoint High School and the women's wrestling coach for Sandpoint Middle School. I also am able to coach on Team Idaho with Fred Bartlett, who will be hopefully joining us next week. I got started in wrestling in about 2015 when we moved to Idaho. And my daughter was the lone wrestler in Sandpoint. And so it was at that moment we just decided that we would dig in and start building a program for Sandpoint and in North Idaho.
And now how many girls are in that program?
So this year we had 30 girls in the middle school, and we have 25 currently in the high school.
That's awesome. And that mirrors what Al has been talking about for the last several years, girls wrestling, the fastest growing sport in the nation. How incredible has that been to watch it just grow and blossom and turn into a fantastic opportunity for young women in our state?
Oh, it's been incredible just to see the explosion in the last 5 years. So to go from my daughter graduated in 2021, there was 2 girl wrestlers, and now it's 2024 and there's 25 is incredible. We just had our Region 1 middle school district championship, and that was a all girls tournament, and there were 100 middle school girls here in North Idaho. That's an incredibly sized tournament for girls in any format, let alone middle school non-club girls. So it's super exciting. It's great to see it across Idaho, but especially where my heart is in North Idaho to see it grow. We have to travel a long way for tournaments. It's quite challenging for our girls, but nonetheless, they are coming out to the mat and showing up in the room and giving it their all. And I could just not be more prouder of not only Sandpoint girls, but all of North Idaho girls as a whole.
Yep. And so you mentioned Fred Bartlett. He is the director of women's wrestling for Idaho. He is going to be on throughout the season as well. I think it's going to be a good balance, counterbalance, because you really are plugged into North Idaho. Obviously, Fred can tackle some of that southern and eastern parts of the state as well. I know, for example, Billy and Chelsea Brown, proud parents at Thunder Ridge High School over in Idaho Falls, love girls wrestling. And that's the sentiment we get every week here on the Idaho Mat Chat Prepcast. So Val, 1 week in, what was the highlight from the opening weekend in girls wrestling? What stood out to you?
We had definitely this freshman class stood out. The underclass, I should say, that the freshmen and the sophomores really came out pretty strong this week. Again, in North Idaho, we had the Blizzard tournament, so we hosted almost all the North Idaho schools came to this tournament other than Lake City. They were over in Montana. So we had Lewiston and Post Falls, Lakeland, just everybody in the north came up into Sandpoint, hosted a girls tournament, and Cooper from Lewiston at 114 pounds she just came in like a wrecking ball in that weight class. And she was kind of on my radar before, but wow, she just my jaw dropped watching her this week in that weight class. Very, very just technical and strong. And she was a fierce to be reckoned with. I think we'll definitely keep her on our spotlight all season.
Yeah, she took out a couple state placers. Rice from Post Falls, the Bonners Ferry girl, the Therian girl.
Yeah.
That was tough. Yeah, that was impressive for a freshman.
Yes. And it was pretty amazing to watch.
Yeah,
And then we had
Keep going,
120. We had 126. We had Vanessa Hood out of Sandpoint, and she came in and she also took out a state placer, and Emma Young at Post Falls, and is new for us on our team. And she came out of the clubs here in Sandpoint and just came in also with a dominant performance. And then nobody can count out young Callie Brown, Team Idaho girl, out of Post Falls in that 138 weight class. Freshman just came in and was very strong, very focused, and was good to see her wrestle in high school for the first time. I've had a pleasure of watching her through elementary, coaching her for Team Idaho in middle school. So it was definitely good to see these girls back on the mat and just growing in their sport this weekend.
It's fantastic to hear so many freshmen coming in and making an impact, Brian, because I feel like last year's freshman class was historic. Kiana Conrad from Blackfoot and Olivia Bestacek from Jerome. And we talked to Roxy Sheen from Buell. All these underclassmen last year set the bar so high. And now we've got the next wave. You're yesterday's news almost.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I mean, you can just go down the list of freshmen from last year. Allie, and I mean, you know, pretty amazing. And to see it happening again this year, it's, you know, it just shows you what the state of girls wrestling. A lot of these younger girls, like Val said, have wrestled since they were little girls, been brought up. And, you know, there are a few seniors and juniors that have wrestled most of their life, but definitely the newer classes have girls that have just wrestled longer. And so I think we're going to keep seeing this trend for a couple more years with just great freshmen coming in. Super, super fun, super excited for the future.
Yeah, because that artist now, she had Charlie Noah from Tri-Valley, freshman.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And in the final, she beat Talia Nichols, very solid wrestler, state champion, All-American, 9-0. So, and I also want to give a shout out to, I don't know if you know this, Val, the Ironman Invitational in Ohio is, in the boys' side, it's the toughest tournament in the country. They've been doing a girls' tournament. Amy Hartman reached the final. She took second and only lost to the number 3 in the country, and she's number 4. So shout out to her.
Oh, absolutely. She's a bruiser.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she is one of Idaho's most accomplished returning wrestlers, Al, right?
Yep.
Yes.
2-time state champion, finalist 3 times, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Val, how tough is it going to be for these champions that are defending their titles to repeat? Because A, it's still an open tournament where the best of the best are competing against each other regardless of school size, but also B, it's just really hard to defend that title because the quantity isn't quite there yet, but the quality is so good.
I think that was a little bit what happened last year as well. They started to learn that lesson last year. We had some returning state champs that lost their title last year. And I think just the skill level overall just is dramatically increasing year over year over year. And it's going to be this is a tough incoming freshman class. It was a tough underclass last year. And it's just going to continue to increase where nobody is safe. You have to go out on that mat every single week and battle for your position.
Yeah. And Val, I wasn't able to share this information. I just looked it up earlier. Another metric to measure where we're at is Idaho has 7 girls ranked nationally, the national rankings. And 2 of them are sophomores. You got Jolie Slider, Kinsey Williams, Kiana Conrad, Olivia Bezchek, Zoe Fries, Elise Twait, and Amy Harmon are all ranked in the country right now. So shout out to them. They've been putting.
I'm very happy to see Kenzie Williams on that list. She's been working extremely hard, and so I'm glad to see her break through that list and be there.
And I truly believe there's a lot more girls good enough to be in that list because a lot of those rankings, they're in a cluster. They just have to get out there and wrestle that competition to show where they're at. So there's those hidden gems again, right?
Oh, there are many across the state.
Yep. Here is Kenna in the chat. She says the Tri-Valley freshman girls look good at Artist Nash last week. Yeah, Tri-Valley, one of the smallest schools in Idaho. It's actually a co-op between Cambridge and Midvale, and what they're able to do, both boys and girls, nothing short of impressive year in, year out down there in the Treasure Valley for sure. Al, as part of your season preview, you looked at the numbers for girls wrestling in terms of participation. I'm going to put it up on the screen here. This is from a Word document, so if you're watching this, you may have to make your screen full size to see the numbers, but there was actually a slight decrease in terms of freshmen that are competing in Idaho, but it was an increase at all of the other class levels.
Yeah, that's a one year change. But we are at an all-time high. But if you look at the numbers, that's a good indicator that our sophomores, juniors, seniors are increasing, because it shows the girls are sustaining throughout their 4 years. But when you look at it nationally, from 22, the national participation compared to Idaho, we have gone up 126% since 22, since the first girls' state tournament. Nationally, they've gone up 103%. So that we're correlating right on that same upward trajectory nationally. But there has been a slight, I think this last year has been the lowest number, 5% change, because the standard deviation has been a lot bigger in the years past. So we'll see where it goes.
The increase is still impressive, though. Val, everyone always wants to know, what's the magic number to get the girls tournament to either A, have more girls in the bracket, or B, maybe split up large school, small school, get away from the all class format? And the easy answer is there isn't a magic number. They just need to see the continued growth year over year. But is that something that you guys and coaches talk about? You know, what's the number we need to get to?
We talk about that quite often. We actually talk about how can we get more girls in the brackets? How can we get more weight classes added? How can we get more girls, especially here in the North? We are very limited in our representation. We cover a lot of territory. We only get the top 2 in our region, going down to state. So we are constantly talking about how can we get more representation, larger brackets, just get more girls to that state championship and get more opportunities for them. Because there were many girls up here that had positive records that really should have been at the state championship this past year that were at home. And so we really want to make that plea with the state that, listen, you know, we got to really look at how we're being represented. How do we get more girls there, especially when they have positive records and really should be at the state tournament. And I think that magic number, I mean, everybody always says, you know, when it hits 1,000, and really, I think if the state just says, we're going to do it, here's what we're doing, the massive girls will continue to flood in. I think, you know, my thoughts on the only 5% growth, which is great. I'm super happy about that. But I think maybe the excitement over the sanctioned girls tournament bubble is kind of bursting a little. We got that big influx of girls in, and now what's the next step? And that next step is for women's wrestling to be fully sanctioned in Idaho. And I think that's the next step to really draw that next wave of girls into the sport in those large numbers, like we were seeing, you know, 30% increase year over year, 25% increase year over year, instead of a 5% increase.
So Val, I'm very interested in this number. Okay, we can say we have 881 girls that have, but break all those numbers down by not just by class, what grade they're in, but what weight groups. Because I remember that a couple of years ago there was a lot of girls, but a vast majority were right in that light middle to middleweight class, whereas the upper and lower classes lacked in the numbers.
I think we're still struggling in that, you know, that it's so awkward, right? We go from 165 to 185 to 235. Those are big jumps for girls, for teenage girl weight classes. And I think if we just do some manipulation there, we might be able to draw in some more girls that could fill in those weight classes. And Al, I really have to defer to you on the numbers. You are definitely the numbers guy. I am not a numbers brain, but just looking at it, like we fill those 100 can kind of be tough, but anything above 107 to, you know, your 145 is pretty filled consistently. I think if we just manipulate something between 165, 185, and 235 to help these girls out in those upper weight classes.
I agree.
Those are big jumps for anybody. I mean, boy or girl. I mean, that's crazy.
They are. It seems like the common sense answer is for Idaho right now, at least, to just adopt the 14 weight class thing that the states around us do. I mean, Utah, Montana, where they're 100, 105, 10, 15, 20, 25, and the upper weights are spread out a little, and we just add 2 weight classes. I think, that's more girls at state. I wish Idaho had done that this year, because those teams traveling to out-of-state tournaments, Washington or Utah, those are the weight classes there.
Yes.
And so I kind of wish Idaho had adopted it this year, but maybe we'll get it next year. That would be an easy change for them to adopt, and I hope we do next year.
And Brian, I'm sorry, Val, what were you saying?
Oh, I was just telling Coach that was a very good point.
So, and another thing we have to also look at too, the state is, as the girls are growing, we want to keep them both under the same roof at state. The Idaho Pocatello Holt Arena is huge, but is there any, how many more mats can they expand there?
What do we put 16 there now for
I think there were 16 down.
So I've been to tournaments there that they've had 24 mats down.
Yeah.
So I know it's possible.
But see, that's the logistic. Okay, if they're going to hold it there, where else outside of there would they hold it where they can? I don't know if the Raleigh Lane, what's that? The Ford Arena, can they?
Yeah, I don't.
How much can we grow? That's the question. How are we going to be able to logistically make it all work? Because 3 days is a lot of wrestling.
It is, and that's the one thing you could do at Holt Arena that you couldn't at the Ford Center is add another 8 mats to avoid the 3-day tournament. I don't know how excited North Idaho and everyone else is to keep coming to Pocatello every year, but
no, we want it over here, brother.
When I was in high school, they used to have it up at the Kibbe Dome.
Yeah,
but I don't know if it's seating there or why they don't make that rotation anymore. But the mat space, you would think they would have more than the Idaho Center. But you're right, that's an issue.
Yeah,
I just think
Kibbe Dome,
as we make those changes, that's part of the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the Kibbe Dome had to stop hosting because there was a jazz festival that was being held the same weekend as state wrestling, and that they just didn't have the space for those 2 of those. But that is moved now, and so I believe Kibbe Dome is going to be back in the state rotation coming up. So that's big news for North Idaho.
Yeah, that's great. I'd love to see that.
Fantastic news for North Idaho.
Yeah, exactly. Billy and Chelsea, we were talking about the weight classes. They said we need more in the 100-pound weight for sure. And then you were talking about 145, Val. Here's Melinda. She says it might be interesting to see what weight Roxy Sheen from Buell wrestles at this year. Didn't see her at Artist, but if she goes 145, her and Elise Twait would be a great state final. So my question to you, Val, is which weight class are you most excited for this year in girls wrestling?
Oh, I will tell you. I am excited for 120 up in the north and maybe in the south too. We really need Fred here to help with this question as well. But I know in the north, 120 is going to be extremely competitive this year. 114 I'm excited about. Obviously 138 in the south, depending on where Roxy goes. That's been a big discussion. I thought she wrestled 145 at Artist, but I could be incorrect on that one. But I am really excited to watch the 120 up here in North Idaho. 120, 114. And obviously 126 always gives you excitement.
Right. 120 has been strong on the boys' side the past several years in several classifications as well. Melinda says following college weights might be the best bet. 103, 110, 117. Seems like the distancing is the best, and some of those lower weights would be easier to fill. It's definitely something worth exploring. I'm interested to see where the state ultimately goes with this topic in the future. Okay, Val, before we let you go, let me ask you, what is your what is a team that you think is going to go to state and compete really well? It's really hard to predict who's going to win state just because there's so many variables, and you could have 3 really outstanding wrestlers and that could do it for you. I know North Idaho is your specialty, so give us a North Idaho girls team you think is going to be very strong this year, and then give us one from somewhere else in the state that you got your eye on.
Well, obviously Thunder Ridge, right? They're going to continue to compete. I mean, they have a fantastic program. They produce girls consistently that are strong. I think you can't count out Eagle. I think Eagle will come in there as a little sleeper. I'm excited to watch their program. So those are my 2 that I'm watching down south. For North Idaho, I think you can't count out Sandpoint and Post Falls. I think those are the 2 that are going to be battling out in the north this year.
Okay, we're so excited to see it.
Post Falls just added a great female coach, Leah Brown, out of California. I'm excited to have another female coach up here in North Idaho for a girls team. So far, we have 3, so that's pretty fantastic. But she is doing a great job with that program. So Post Falls is going to be one to watch. Of course, Sandpoint's going to be one to watch. We have some strong contenders. We have 2 returning state placers. We have, I think, 4 on Fred's rankings that are coming out this week. So, and then kind of mid Idaho, Potlatch has snuck in there. So Potlatch is on my radar this year as well.
Okay.
Rocky Mountain in there too. Rocky Mountains.
Al coaches at Rocky Mountain, so he's got to get the Billy and Chelsea, love your pick of Thunder Ridge. Yeah, I agree. Thunder Ridge is going to be really strong this year. Val, we are so excited to have you as a contributor. Thank you for doing this. And we really appreciate your expertise. And most of all, thank you for what you're doing for girls wrestling in the state of Idaho too.
Thank you guys. I appreciate you. Thank you for having me on.
Okay. Sounds good, Val. We'll talk to you next week. See ya.
See you next. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right, guys, there you go. So I like that. I like having a kind of a dedicated time where we can talk girls wrestling because the topics, the issues are vastly different than what boys wrestling is encountering there as well. And that was a good conversation. It's not something I was thinking about immediately, Al, filling those weight classes and the disparity in the weights as well. That is kind of an issue, I think.
Yeah, it's just another part of the puzzle you have to look at, because you can, I mean, if like a bell curve, a vast majority are right there in that 80 percentile. We're in those middle weights.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see.
Yeah, I haven't seen a breakdown, but I know, at Artist Nash, 235 and 98 were, and I think it's somewhat the same in the boys weights, obviously 98 and heavier, the smaller brackets usually, but it's more striking, I think, in the girls brackets at that 235. And that would be the one problem with going with college weights is there's no weight class above 200 for college girls. And so
that's right.
You're missing a chunk, but some hybrid in there, we can find a solution.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep, I think so for sure. Okay, so let's wrap up with just a general conversation of what's coming up. And of course, first show of the year, we've got to make our state championship predictions. I'll put them in the vault, and then we'll come back in February and see how we did. While we were talking girls wrestling, we were kind of wrapping up that conversation about Snake River, American Falls, Marsh Valley, Bear Lake over there in that District 5, and how there aren't a lot of seeds that come to state, from those smaller districts. Zach says, I think the 3A 5th district only getting 2 automatic qualifiers is a problem. They have 120 wrestlers in that division. And then there was another comment here. Bruce says state has been a numbers game for many years. And that is kind of the crux of it, Al, isn't it? If you are a team like a Meridian or a Minico in years past, and you can get a stable of people to the state tournament, the numbers suggest that you're going to have a better shot.
It is a numbers game. I like the fact that you can send 2 kids possibly to state. I mean, there's so many seconds that are good out there that are good enough to place. I personally think they should only count the top placer. That's just my thinking. It would really make things easier in predictions. Because when you're solving for X is the unknown. And it's like, how many people are going to be extra they're going to score? Because when you look at Bishop Kelly and Minico, they both bring back 5 or 6 placers, with Bishop Kelly having, 3 champions and 4 finalists and another placer. Minico has 6 kids. Minico always has a lot of kids, so that it's going to be, I'd say they're a slight favorite right now at this point. So we'll see.
Yeah, and I do wonder if Canyon Ridge moving up will affect their numbers in the future. That is one less team that is in Minico's district. I don't know. It's all interesting. And that was kind of the case study last year. Which strategy was going to win that 4A, now 5A championship? Was it going to be the quantity of Minico or the quality of Bishop Kelly? Well, Brian, we never really got the answer to that question, did we?
Down to the wire. We were all right.
Bishop Kelly scored a lot of falls and they had a lot of bonus points, and kids that were expected to lose won that close match. And that was they took 3rd instead of expect to be in maybe 5th or 6th. They rose to the occasion in the end. So Yeah.
I would say it's not the optimal strategy, but if you can pull it off, hey, more power to you.
It's great for the fans.
Yeah, that's for sure. Matthew wants to know, can you have bigger brackets and more qualifiers in those middle weights on the girls' side? That is something I think is worth exploring. I don't know, Brian. That gets kind of tricky if you expand only certain weight brackets. But
yeah,
what do you think about that?
I think we could just have bigger brackets in all the weight classes.
All of them. That's the answer, isn't it?
I don't think statewide, say you went to a 32 girl bracket or something, I think we could still fill that. There's going to be 32 98 pounders and 32 heavyweights statewide. And so you wouldn't have, it might be easier to get into the bracket if you're one of the upper lighter weights. But I think that would be a solution that would work, is just make them all bigger.
Yeah. I will say when I talked to an official at the IHSAA in the summertime, that was one of the questions I had. It was about expanding girls wrestling brackets. And I was told that an expansion doesn't even necessarily have to be, okay, there's 16, we're going to double it to 32. It could be 24.
Yeah.
It could be, and then you build in buys and things like that. So 32 looks daunting, but it doesn't have to be, just automatically doubling the amount of participants. You can increase the bracket in smaller ways for sure. Two Dudes says only one wrestler should have scoring criteria. That's what Al's kind of saying. Yeah, I like that. Travis wants to know, guys, who are some boys to watch this year? Al, I'll go to you first because you just wrote all those incredible state previews. I know what my answer is going to be, but you go ahead.
I'm sort of dizzy right now. I mean, all these names. Let's look at we'll look at the 5A. Let me see. Go up to see. Here we go again. 5A. It's really 6A.
6A.
Okay.
Yeah.
So looking at 6A, you got Ryder Sequin. I mean, he's in position to go for number 4. So he's a kid that can join that club. We got 4 other kids going for their third state title. Ryan Hershert, Sawyer Anderson from Highland, Jeremiah Gonzalez is looking solid from Meridian, and Seth Martin. It's going to be interesting that Draven Johns from Caldwell, who's a 3-time placer, now he's up in the 6A because they came up. He's going to be in the mix too, so I'll be watching to see who he possibly goes up against. So I'd say those kids right there. There's a lot more, but I'll just Logan Shaver from Meridian. He was a finalist last year, and he's looking tough. I mean, he's an All-American, so keep an eye on him in the 6A.
Yeah, and then the names I immediately thought of, 1 5A, 1 4A, Matt Martino from Bishop Kelly, absolute stud, and Bowden Banta from South Fremont. That dude is an animal. He is so fun to watch. Those were the 2 names that immediately popped into my head when I saw that question. Brian, who are some boys you've got your eye on this year?
I think all the names you can't go wrong with Martina, Banta. A lot of the kids that did good at Fargo again, Saxton Scott's going to be fun. That Googleman and I just go blank the lad.
Morrison,
Googleman, Morrison. I mean, returning. Those are going to be fun matches to watch going forward. They're probably going to see each other again, but any of those All-Americans coming back, and then the incoming freshmen that we have, there's going to be some great ones. The Neville's kid that's in Meridian. It's going to be fun to watch how he does. Grayson Packer at St. Anthony. I think you got 2 potential 4-time state champions there if everything goes according to their plan. And so I think that's going to be fun to watch. And
Caden McKenzie from Fruitland, 2-timer. He's solid. He's another tough one. There's so many tough kids coming back this year. So it'll be good.
Yeah, I'll give you one more name just because we called him a lot during football season. He may have led the state in rushing as a running back. I'm not 100% sure, but Preston Sonner Cranny from Minico.
Yeah, he's going for his third? He's 2-timer, 3-time medalist.
Yeah. Absolute stud. Okay, guys, we'll wrap up our first episode of the Mat Chat Prepcast. Time to put your feet to the fire. We're going to make our state championship predictions. We'll see how right we are back when we do the recap in February. Okay, we'll all take turns. Al, I'm going to go to you first for our 6A predictions. Previously 5A, Meridian has been the dominant force the last several years. Do the Warriors run it back yet again, or does somebody else new emerge?
Although Madison's looking good, I don't think they have enough to get to that top. Meridian definitely has the talent to do it. But at this time, I would say Post Falls with 10 placers and some solid incoming freshmen, I'd say they're the early season favorite in 6A right now.
Okay. Brian, what do you think?
It's hard to bet against Meridian. What they've done, they built a dynasty over there the last few years, but they lost a lot this last year, and they reloaded. We've already talked about the freshmen they have coming in, but I've got to go with Post Falls just based on the numbers. And that it was a tight race last year, and Post Falls had some injuries. If they stay healthy this year, I think it's Post Falls' year.
Mm-hmm.
That is the key. Post Falls fell off at the end of the season, a couple of devastating injuries, and then Meridian ended up winning the state title by a substantial margin. I will go. Boy, I'm going to get disowned here. I'm going to go Meridian until somebody beats them. Yeah. And you guys mentioned it. Yes, they did lose a lot to graduation. We're going to find out this program that is in place, because you can have a good run and a good class, but if you're a good program, you're going to reload and refill the coffers. And so I'm going to go.
Got some seconds coming up that are solid. So although I'm saying Post Falls, they're right there. It's right there.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Brian, we'll go to you first for the next classification. 5A, previously 4A. Minico again. Bishop Kelly again. Does somebody win it outright this time, or is it someone else?
I think, BK lost a lot. They're bringing, Valdez, Martino coming back. They've got Thompson. They've got a strong core coming back. They're going to be competitive. But I think one of the big factors there is Canyon Ridge out of that district. I think Minico is going to bring more kids to state than they have before. They got a lot of returning placers. So I think Minico will win it outright. Now, another wrinkle in there is Middleton dropping down is going to hurt BK, because Middleton is probably a top 5 program at that 5A letter. So that's going to hurt BK. So I've got Minico outright this year.
Yeah, I'm taking the Spartans as well. Give me Sparty. HA says they're going to love you in the North, Bainey. Yeah, I'm going to be disowned. I'm going to be kicked out back to Pocatello. So I like Minico as well. Al, at the 5A level, what do you got?
Yeah, as of yet, they got 6 placers, 5 state qualifiers coming back. I don't know of any top level freshmen. BK has a couple top level freshmen coming in that can make some impact, but I'd say right now, because they're going to have the numbers, Minico.
Okay. Let's go to me, this one is the most clear cut. Now, I'm not saying that because the other teams aren't good, but Fruitland is just on an all-time heater in terms of the 4A classification. I'll go first this time on the somewhat easier one, and I'll take Fruitland. I just think the Grizzlies, I mean, after what they did last year, and all the guys they bring back, it's going to be tough for somebody else to topple Fruitland at the top of that 4A rank. But what do you think, Al?
I agree. I mean, didn't they break the record last year of something like 390 points?
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong. They have 13 placers coming back, and 9 state qualifiers and a few good incoming freshmen. American Falls is going to be in the battle. Buell's going to be there, Snake River. Even Weiser has some tough kids in Timberlake, but still I think it's Fruitlands to lose.
Brian, what do you think?
Yeah, I can't disagree. I've got to go Fruitland. I mean, they're bringing just so much back. Plus, we talked about the transfer they had coming in. I mean, I think their team really just got stronger. They lost a couple, but the core of that team's coming back. Just like Al said, American Falls, Buell have some great kids coming in, and it could make it competitive, but I think Fruitland's just bringing too much back.
Uh-oh, guys, we've had consensus on our last 2 classifications. That's usually the kiss of death in terms of predictions here. I have a feeling we're going to diverge with the 3A classification. This is one of the trickier ones to peg because there's just so many quality teams, and it's 3A, 2A, and 1A all competing together. Al, you've got the baton first for this one. What do you think?
There's 5 teams I'm looking at. Malad, Kellogg, New Plymouth, Rary, and Grace. Malad maybe, because they got some Malad and Kellogg, I think, are probably top 2 in New Plymouth. They did lose a kid. See, Kellogg has 6 placers come back, 8 qualifiers. I'm going to go with Kellogg right now.
Al, you sniped my pick. That's what I was gonna do. I was gonna go Kellogg. I think this is the year for the Wild. I really like Malad. I picked Malad to win last year, and I really do think Malad is gonna be there right at the end as well. But I don't know, gut feeling. I just got a feeling about Kellogg this year from the North. Brian, are we all gonna pick Kellogg? What do you think?
I'm going to break the tie. I think Kellogg's, it's going to be competitive. I think New Plymouth is right in there. Watch Ryrie this weekend. I can't count. 4 or 5 team race. But I'm going to go with Malad. I think, Malad brought in some good freshmen. They're returning sophomores, Maddox, Morrison, got some great senior leadership on the team. So I think with the freshmen coming in and the lighter weight, Malad's going to pull it off this year.
Okay. And finally, guys, we had an expert on the show. We got to pick Val's brain a little bit about girls wrestling. She threw some contenders out there, some teams she's keeping an eye on. I'll go first for this one. She swayed me to Thunder Ridge. I'm going to go Titans. They did so well at state a year ago. Sign me up for the Thunder Ridge Titans in girls wrestling. Al, what do you got?
Yeah, I got Thunder Ridge at this time. I mean, they got 3 solid placers. There's a lot of teams that bring back a couple placers and that's it. And there's a lot of unknowns of the income. It's really unknown right now what the quantity they're going to have going to state. So keep an eye on Rocky Mountain. They have up to 3 returning placers and some good freshmen. So they'll be in the mix. Eagle, you can't count them out because they did win the Artist Nash tournament. But Thunder Ridge right now. Okay,
Brian, what do you think?
Man, I was going to just flip a coin, but I'd have to flip it 5 different times because I've got 10 teams that could win this. I mean, that's how hard this one is. Eagle just won that. Thunder, they beat Thunder Ridge at Artist Nash, and they're missing Taylor Brown from Thunder Ridge. American Falls is going to be solid. Buell obviously has a solid team. Kuna's right there in the mix. Mm-hmm. I'm going to go, since there's 10 teams, I'm going to go with the homer pick, and I'm going to say dark horse, not even going to be in this preseason top 10 rankings, Skyline. Now, if their cheerleading team doesn't make the state, because I think they've got 3 girls on the cheerleading team that are also wrestling, states the same day. But I think it's girls, that might not win state titles, but I think they've got 5 or 6 girls that could place top 6 at state if they're able to go.
Okay. Wow, that'll be an interesting question to ask Val next week about that. How many girls are also doing cheer or dance or something else in addition to wrestling? That's a problem I wouldn't have even thought of, Brian.
Yeah,
it's interesting.
Yeah, it's affected our team the last couple of years at state, and this year 3, maybe even 4 girls on the cheer, the cheer, and it's the same date, and so they go to conference and then can't make it to the state tournament. So.
Yeah. And I think too, another sneaky dark horse team that I don't know if they'll be in the top 10 or not, but I think Mountain Home has some potential as well this year.
Good returning placers, right?
Yeah.
Hartman and Michaela Smith.
Yeah.
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 And that's what's crazy on the girl. If you get 3 placers, it is so dispersed. I think you could win it with no champions if you just get a handful of placers. So
I agree. 100,000. Yeah.
Yep. It's going to be a fun season for sure. One show down, many more to come. Guys, as always, Alan, Brian, thank you for volunteering some of your time each week to help out here on the Idaho Mat Chat Prepcast. Al, if it was just me doing this, oh man, the ship would sink in a hurry.
No, we're a good team. It's fun. I'm enjoying it. Merry Christmas to everyone. It's hard to believe we're already here in December. Already seeing a little snow. So
Yep.
It'll affect some tournament. We're not going to be able to get somewhere because of the snow. It all happens every season with wrestling, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We get a little here in the Treasure Valley, not like where you're at. We get a little dusting.
Yeah.
So
over
that bad down here.
Over in the Banana Belt. Al, where are you going to be at this weekend? What competition?
I was thinking about going to watch the middle school championship. So, and I think there's another JV tournament local, but I'll probably go to see the middle school kids this week. I like to go watch that tournament.
Cool. And that's in the Treasure Valley?
Yeah, I believe it's going to be held at Centennial High School.
Cool. All right there in Boise. Brian, where are you going to be at this weekend?
Man, I've got 4 places I want to be. I'd love to be at Tri-State. The Marsh Valley tournament is going to be strong. Tim Matthews Invitational is always tough, but I'm going to split time between junior high conference and Hillcrest Girls tournament. I'm going to try to run back and forth and catch as much of both as I can.
Cool. All right. Middle school action there as well. Kenna wraps up and says, go Tri-Valley. If I go somewhere, it probably Tri-State. I mean, that's right there close to me. But I will be keeping a close eye on the Tim Matthews. That always is kind of like this. To me, that's kind of like the unofficial kickoff to wrestling season. That's the first big competition of the year. So a lot of good competition, a lot of good comments in the chat tonight. Thanks, everybody, for tuning into the Idaho Mat Chat Prepcast. Again, on the way out, if you could hit that like button or that subscribe button if you're on YouTube, and then share this when it's all said and done. That'll help everyone who wasn't able to watch live tonight find it a little easier on replay. And we will be doing this every Tuesday night, 8 p.m. Mountain, 7 p.m. Pacific time, from now till the end of the high school wrestling season. So thanks for tuning into the Idaho Mat Chat Prepcast. And oh, by the way, guys, first rankings of the season drop tomorrow on IdahoSports.com. That's right. We're bringing the rankings back for every classification. And so stay tuned to IdahoSports.com, the website tomorrow, for our first rankings of the season. Those always inspire some lively debates in the wrestling community as well. So for Al Fontes and Brian Zollinger, and also Val Johansson, our girls wrestling expert, my name is Brandon Baney. Thanks for tuning into the Idaho Mat Chat Prepcast on IdahoSports.com.